Welcome to the Gnarly Girls podcast.
What's up, gnarly beings?
This is a loose-lipped, unfiltered, raw-dogging, stripping down of culture.
No fucks, no panties. This is a labia of love.
We're your hosts, Tony Naj
and Serafina Supernova, and this is Gnarly Girls. Oh wait, what is this episode order?
What is this episode about, Sarah? So you and I have been in an immense amount of pain over the past couple weeks for you, couple weeks for me as well. We've been suffering from physical pain.
Yeah, I got a broken pinky toe. I've been calling it my pinky toe primal wound. It is on the left side of the body, which, they say is connected to the feminine energetics. And my invitation has been around receiving. I also had my husband look up the spiritual meaning of a broken pinky toe, and he told me that it's about your pinky toe turning back to source instead of looking outside of you to find the answer, which I do resonate with.
I have been dealing with a back spasm that lasted, well, it's still happening, but the spasm itself lasted a week where I truly couldn't sit up. And then the first thing I could do was like a baby, I could sit up and not lay down anymore. So there has been a rebirthing that I've been going through. I mean, I wouldn't even just call it a dark night of the soul. I'd call it a genuine physical rebirthing because I could not sit up. I mean, I guess I could stand. A baby can't stand. I could lay or I could stand.
It was a darkening. It was a deepening. It was and continues to be what feels like a moment in the chrysalis where we're growing some new wings. I got a new toe wing. You've got some new spine wings. We also did some healings.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but I always think it's interesting how what happens inside of a chrysalis or a pupae, when you're in a pupus. What is that word is pornographic. But
a pupae.
When you are in a pupae, when one were to be in a pupae, a butterfly or a moth, they liquefy.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing in there. They become liquid to transform. So it's not like you go in with your little caterpillar self and then
caterpillar
you grow wings, you liquefy. And then I guess you become a caterpillar because they have that like cock body. I mean, what is a caterpillar but a cock with wings?
Well, they turn into like sloppy soup and then they grow their wings out of these things that are literally called imaginal discs. So they like imagine and dream their new wings into being. So, like, if the butterflies and the moths and the winged ones, and I actually think all of the winged creatures have dragon blood in them, if they're dissolving into slop and nothingness, and we are also dragon, you're definitely a dinosaur, then we must also turn into slop and grow new selves from that place.
Yeah, so I think what we were wanting to talk about is pain is transformation, and also the collective pain that everyone is experiencing, whether you are consciously or unconsciously experiencing collective pain, it is quantumly entangled to us. And then I also think we wanted to talk about the hysteria of emotional pain and physical pain. And we use the word hysteria because women have been called hysterical for thousands of years for manifesting emotional pain in their behavior. I mean, I would say war is a very obvious like manifestation of emotional pain into an action, but that's considered honorable, where feminine pain, female expression of pain is never considered honorable. It's considered hysterical.
Yeah, and I also feel like there is a lot of things we're being asked to take in and digest right now. And personally, for me, I feel some like past life trauma on the rise. When we were watching Love Island the other night, I got so excited by this cutie pie kissing this other cutie pie's hands that I threw my neck back, and I feel like I've reactivated an old hanging from a past life. After Tony's healer had just actually put it back back together a couple days prior because it was triggered by something else, which makes me want to say, I just feel like some core wounds, some primal wounds, some deep past life triggers are getting reactivated, not because the multiverse is bullying us, but because I think we're supposed to remember that we are hysterical, wild badasses, and like it's okay to foam at the mouth a little and like be like wet for the revolution right now and a little like, "Rah!" Like rabid dog. You know, like women who are with the wolves, yes, but like what about women who are rabid dogs? I want you to have rabies, you know, rabies for the revolution.
Rabies for the revolution, just foaming at the mouth in order to.
I'm spitting.
You are foaming. Sarah's caffeinated. I am on the edge. I'm still wishing I would perish, but I'm getting there.
I'm here to give you a little serotonin. You.
I think what I would like to do is talk about two things when it comes to hysteria. One is the history of the concept of hysteria, which dates back to ancient Greece. And then I want to get into a little Freudian stuff. So we were looking up hysteria. We're podcasting. Oh, bring it over here and I'll show you. Sorry, my kid she's um doing a deep clean of her room.
Yeah, deep clean. The vacuum won't open. I haven't even vacuumed at all. I didn't even know you were
Okay.
cleaning, but I had
Listen,
a psychic vision of
wait,
you
hold on.
dusting.
You go like this over the trash and if I do it, that all this is gonna plop out, but you pull this red thing down.
Down?
Yeah, you pull it down, but with this in the trash and you push it down and then all this whole
Yeah.
Ah!
Why did you do that?
I wanna throw up.
Why did you do that? Why did you do that? That was important. This is a metaphor. Hey,
Oh,
a hair
a hair tie.
Why did you do that?
Because I was trying to show you. I was trying to be a good mother. Hold that.
I don't want to.
Just take it. Okay.
Do you want to swap places?
Hold on a second. I got an idea. I'm just gonna vacuum this
What?
with another vacuum. Um,
This feels important.
Why did you do that? I was trying to help you.
But you have to actually do it. This is symbolic. Like we gotta let the dust out, you know? If your emotional vacuum is too full, you know, it's not gonna suck up any more dust, and then sometimes you're gonna open it by accident and pour it everywhere.
Vacuuming what was once vacuumed. Wait, I have to get to the mic. Vacuuming up what was once vacuumed is a metaphor for this whole thing. Wait, I was looking at the mic, but not at the camera, but you get it. All right, so this is an ASMR.
It's a visual representation of what you become in the chrysalis. And like also, women do so much vacuuming.
Look, if we could pay an editor, we would have edited that out, but instead you just had some sick ASMR and you had to actually, I just want if you're not on YouTube, I just want you to picture the fact that I just emptied the entire remnants of a vacuum onto the place that I'm sitting and then had to vacuum it up. All right, let's go back to hysteria.
I'm gonna pull a self-love card for what that was about that I'll talk about at the end of the podcast.
Okay, sounds like a plan. All right, so in ancient Greece, obviously, it was a very patriarchal society. Women were not considered citizens. They were not considered people. They were not respected. They were not involved in the politics. And so the idea of hysteria comes from the word
Hysterical
and
or
womb.
and womb.
Yeah.
And also hysterectomy came from it.
Yes. So we were looking up this idea of the wandering womb that the Greeks were talking about. What did you learn about the wandering womb, Sarah?
Basically that women can't be trusted because the womb wanders into too many emotional territories and it's too dusty and dangerous. And so therefore women can't be in positions of power. It was actually crazy to sort of read about the connection between hysteria and ancient Greece and be like, oh, and this is why women couldn't be in positions of political power. And it's like, oh, The same thing is still happening.
Yeah, this is over 2500. I mean, this is 2500 years later since Hippocrates, but this is, I think, the guiding idea around patriarchy that suppresses women's emotions as information. So let me,
As
with
if
this,
men don't get periods.
I've, they get mansies.
Ah,
Men are very emotional, we know this, but let me just remind you of something. In nature, someone's instincts, an animal being tuned in to their emotions and their instincts and their environment, is the animal that is warning the other animals of danger. So if you're just going to watch nature, you will see animals warning each other of danger. And yet, we are so divorced from our instincts. We are so divorced from our nature. We are so divorced from our ability to honor our connection to our emotions that women's emotions that are warning people are considered hysterical.
how many times have you been called crazy?
Um, I think I get called weird more than I get called crazy. I mean, we were talking about this the other day that a lot of men on the internet comment on my eyes as if my eyes are really, if I'm saying something they don't agree with, they're always like, you can always see it in the eyes. She's got those crazy eyes. Okay. I guess that's what they're trying to say when they comment on my eyes is that I'm unhinged.
Yes. Yeah, I've definitely been called crazy and dumb, probably the most out of all of the insults in my life.
Oh,
Yeah. And I do think it relates to my big mouth, you
you
know?
have a bit, you have, like physically, you do have a big mouth. You lead with the mouth, I lead with the eyes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I do a lot of lip action. I have been told I have some DSLs, you know?
Well, I think that
Designer.
I think every person has a defining feature, and it doesn't even have to do with size. It just has to do with where the eyes are magnetized. You know, sometimes it's the cheekbones, it could be the jaw, the chin, even the forehead, mouth, nose. I think it's all indicative of something. Long story long is this idea of a wandering womb, which is a hilarious image to think of like it's like the detachable penis and the wandering womb.
Yeah.
But it's all about this fear around a women's emotions. And I'm assuming their menses, their periods, as this way in which the period ignites different emotions. So as we all know, a woman has a 28-day hormonal cycle. Men have 24-hour hormonal cycles. So I think anyone who's been in a male body has experienced moodiness throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone who's been in any human body, female or male, has experienced moodiness throughout the month. So, moodiness is a big part of the human condition, but it's been pathologized within women because of this confusion around the period, which is ultimately, as we've talked about before, I think rooted in a deep envy of birth.
I'm also interested in this idea of, reclaiming the wild woman archetype, which I think so many women or people who identify with as witches or with magic are interested in. And also, bowing to Clarissa Pinkola de Estes and her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. The reason that I fuck with her as a philosopher, and she's a PhD, so she's a smarty pants, is she doesn't talk about the wild woman from the perspective of the male gaze. It's actually like very triggering. I found myself playing it like to the masculine, I would assume, not to me. It's very activating, but also probably potentially triggering to women too, and all people. But I was playing it very loudly in my house a couple weeks ago, and I was just hyper aware of what she was saying. And even though I talk about this all the time, like I am a feminist, this is my life's work, I talk about it with my husband nonstop, I felt almost like self conscious having the transmission of the book being played in the background because it's not like the pretty packaged sanitized version of wildness. Like it is pointing to the need to like reclaim our most hysterical selves. But I think the translation of her work and the commodification of it and like the many branches off of it has turned into this like Instagrammable post about what it is to like rewild yourself. And I see a lot of that still wanting to like not be too crazy so that men don't judge us. Not be too
Yeah.
ugly so that men don't. So like we have to be wild, but we also still have to be hot about our wildness because like ultimately we still need men's approval because like they're the leaders and they have the security.
No, I think that um when we talk about wildness and when we talk about hysteria and when we talk about emotions, there is a judgment as if there is no value and no place for that within a quote unquote civilized culture. However, I think that anyone with some sort of like open, rational analysis would look at emotions and be like, oh, yes, every single emotion has a purpose because they're so deeply baked into our evolutionary history, herstory, theystory. So,
Bastery's cute.
theystory is cute. Um, And I think that the demonization of emotion is really tied into the demonization of sexuality because it is part of the wildness. And when I say wildness, I say it's unpredictable.
Instinct
It's
oriented.
instinct oriented versus logic oriented. And again, so much of what's considered logical is incredibly illogical. Like you can look at science and say, oh, this is the logic of science. And yet AI is completely illogical. That is not a logical decision to be making for humanity when so few people are making decisions that are affecting an entire globe and ecosystem. There's nothing logical about AI. There's nothing logical about um, the military. Although there is a cultural narrative as if these are logical choices, and anything that's emotional or sensitive, like, oh, we should protect the planet or we should protect children, is considered for some reason illogical. So I think what is significant is to really kind of take a step back at what is genuine logic and what is emotional instinct and what is wildness, because from my perspective, wildness is tapping into nature, which is tapping into source, which is tapping into godliness, which is actually the most rational thing you could possibly do, which is to be connected to nature.
Yes. One of my favorite philosopher, writer, oracle priestesses, Sophie Strand, um, gave me this code around, and I feel like I might have talked about this on the Witch Wound episode as well, which is a great episode to listen to in tandem to this if you're into this. We have part one and two. She was talking about like letting the angels have fur again, like
Mm.
letting the angels have animalizing the angels, letting them have eyeballs everywhere, letting them be almost like gnarly and terrifying looking versus like the way that church and religion has made angels, guides, God out to be essentially like sculpted white men.
You're really
It's
aesthetically,
very strange. It's really,
yeah,
it's very Greek. I mean, it's
yeah.
very Greek, very Roman. I also think that well, I mean, what I notice in my own practice as a witch and also working with people is if you can cut women, especially, off from their instincts, then you cut them off from their intuition. Because I don't think you can really have full access to your intuition if you're not tapped into your instincts, which is where, like, you know, we've both been going through these really painful experiences. Like, this has not been easy. Tony had to cancel things. I had to cancel things. I ended up just going on this long journey across the country into Canada by myself on this broken toe. I had to do lots of self advocating, like just really painful, hard, like you want to choke yourself and just die moments because it's like your core wounds are just being put right in front of your face. And my experience of that, and of course, you know, I say this from my own privilege and blah, 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 whatever. But my truth is that when I'm brought to those places where it's like, I have to like touch my instinct and the animal and make a choice and almost like make it quickly, even though it feels really bad to get tapped into that part of the animal. And it's like, oh, there's all this resistance and wanting to fight it. And like, no, like someone else choose for me, or could it all just be easier? I think when we get to meet those old wounds, those animal parts of us from a new perspective, we like actually heal forward and we expand our window of tolerance and we expand our capacity and we expand our resilience. And I think that's important right now to like have some resilience, you know, and the ability to stand up on your legs and like self generate your own prana and life force energy to stay on course.
Well, I
Stay on
want to
mission.
echo what you were saying is that when you are taken away from your instinct, it impacts your relationship to your intuition. And I think from a capitalist, patriarchal, white supremacist lens, being connected to your intuition is actually really threatening.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of what I could analyze in my own like life and stories and times where I've been taken advantage of, there was always an intuition that like, and I just didn't trust it. And I think that when you don't trust your intuition or when that voice is small, it's not loud enough, then you are going to put yourself in more dangerous situations. You are going to be able to be easier, like exploited easier. You're going to be traumatized easier. You're going to be taken advantage of easier because your instinct and your intuition is too quiet. And the louder that voice gets, the more you can advocate for yourself, the more boundaries you'll have, the less you'll be taken advantage of, the more you're going to have stronger values of protection and protection of others, and the less easy you are to control. So, you know, if you were to look at it from a biological standpoint, if your intuition and your instinct, which is said to reside in your pituitary and your pineal glands, those are the parts of the brain that are most at war at that with these endocrine disruptors. So with the perfumes and the makeup and the toxins in the clothes and the toxins in the food and the glyphosate and the aluminum and the Wi-Fi and all of these, I mean, and this isn't just like, oh, this is like fringe conspiracy talk. Like, absolutely not. These things are very toxic. And I think when our brain is in this constant battlefield of these assaults of the toxins, then it makes us again easier to control. So our intuition, our instinct is always under assault because it's a mechanism of control.
So what do we do? I
Oh,
think,
wait, I wanted to say
oh,
something else about Freud.
please.
So, around this idea of hysteria.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Freud was practicing, one of the things that he did that was originally revolutionary in the sense that not many people were doing it is all these women were being called hysterical. And he was like, maybe we should try talking to these bitches and asking them what's wrong. And so his desire to ask women what was happening to them and that potentially there was something going on in their lives that was contributing to their behavior was new. That was like, what? You're just going to ask these bitches what's going on with them? And that might provide some information. So props to Freud for trying that out. But what he discovered, because a lot of his patients were of a higher social class, because those are the people that could afford to go to Freud in Austria at that time. So it was more rich people. And these women or girls were being raped by their fathers or their husbands or their brothers. And Freud was so perplexed as to why would a wealthy man rape his daughter. Like, why would that happen? He was so confused by that. And so that's part of why he started to rationalize children being sexually attracted to their parents because he was like, oh, well, the child must be like wanting it. Like these girls must be wanting it because why would their rich dads rape them? Like that's how prevalent rape culture was in his mind that he couldn't quite understand it. And of course, there's the Oedipal complex as well, which does date back to ancient Greece with Oedipus mistakenly fucking his mom, upsetting, and then murdering his dad. upsetting. So it's not as if these themes haven't been part of this like patriarchal understanding. But I do think that people wanting to rationalize pedophilia by saying, oh, it's the children wanting it. And then basically that's most of what his like psychological contribution is kids secretly want to fuck their parents versus like no. Like a child is actually a product of a demented system where parents would fuck their kids.
Yeah. Wow. I'm like, where do I'm gonna like, where do I take it from there?
The funny thing is, y'all, I was at a comedy show, and for whatever reason, like the audience was like, there was these hecklers that were just out of control. They were just incredibly rude, and they just wouldn't stop talking during people's sets. And I was headlining that comedy show. Oh, here comes another cameo from my kid.
She's
Okay.
just looking for something. Oh, she emptied the vacuum 3
She's
times.
been doing a deep clean in her room. Anyway, so I'm at this comedy show, and there there was these people that just kept talking, and finally I just was like, hey, and I just told them all I told the whole audience this story about Freud, and it was like I was like, this isn't comedy. I just thought everyone should know this in the room. And boy, did it make those people shut up. And then they stopped talking throughout the rest of my set. Like I did go back to comedy.
You shut me right up.
Yeah, but there's something about that that'll really just quiet a room. So if for some reason you ever need to quiet I don't know if y'all heard her slam that door, but if you ever need to quiet a room, you can research this and talk about it. Yeah, research it deeper also.
I mean, what as I finger your sock, that's the same sock as you're wearing, but with a hole in it. What I'm thinking about, I'm giving my broken pinky toe a massage through the hole in the sock, um, is just like the way that these things haven't gone away. They haven't died in terms of like theories of Freud and all of these white men that are very, very old and dead at this point. Like, why has somatics not like infiltrated, science and biology classes when it is like deeply scientific and really like supportive life skills? Like we are still learning about Freud, and it's not in a way that's like this guy was crazy. Don't follow his teachings. Like children are not asking to be fucked by their parents. It's like this is the history of psychology,
Yep.
which is wild. And so like as people who know that we are holistic beings, I think it's really powerful to be like, okay, the mind and the body are actually not separate. The mind has neurons, the body has neurons, the heart has neurons.
The stomach.
Yeah, this is a communication highway of hormones and information and blood that is moving. And it makes me want to say two things. One, our pain is always a messenger. Like the pain is a messenger. The pain is here to tell you something always. For me, my broken pinky toe was and continues to be this activation around proving and pushing and overworking in moments where I actually should be resting, like doing less when I'm like wired to be doing more. If you'd like to talk about your back activation, we can do that as well. But I also want to say this, which is when the censorship reaches the place where they're not just censoring like what it is that we feel safe to do with our bodies, but like the thoughts that we can even think. Like censorship over our thoughts, which I feel like is where we are right now culturally. Like in the moment of recording this podcast, there is a lot of thought censorship happening. That's when you know it's like the moment on planet Earth to get down dirty and deep in the most gnarly, rewilding, and cosmic dance with the multiverse where like you get to choose to be an active agent for the revolution. Nobody is going to hand you a sticker and be like, you're an anarchist now. You're an artist. You're a vessel in a portal. You're going to have to be like, I am that. You're going to have to claim, like, despite this pain, despite my trauma, and not even like despite, like, because of all of these things that I have lived through and learned, like, the tribulations and the trials are as important as the triumphs. And it's all here to be a part of, like, what you're here to offer. I don't want to be a teacher and a guide and an artist who is pain avoidant and then tries to, like, go through life avoiding pain and making work from that place. That's so boring. That's not relatable. So, what a compliment that you're injured. What a compliment that I'm injured. What a compliment that you're in pain if you're in pain. It is part of our process and it is part of our rebirth. And I do think, at the time of this podcast being recorded, there's a lot of like cycles ending, cycles beginning, which I know people say all the time, but I really, really, really do feel like we are at the beginning of a new cycle.
I know everyone always is saying that.
No, but it is for real right now.
I was just thinking, I made a couple of videos about my back and I was doing that for two reasons. One, because I remember, I don't know, I think it was like a year or two ago, I was really sick or something. Something was going on with me. And my kid was like, you should go. I think I was sick or I was injured and I had something to do. She's like, you should go to your community and you should ask them for help, for energetic help. And I would have never really like thought of that. Not that I share everything. I share a lot of what's going on with me, but I wouldn't have like thought to be like, hey, I'm suffering, send me good vibes. And when she said that, I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's a kind of a good idea. So ever since then, that is like a practice that I do, with people that I'm connected to on the internet, which is just to like ask for good vibes because I genuinely do believe that when you send someone good vibes, it is a vibe. Like it's positive. But it was funny to me how many people were like, "Have you tried acupuncture?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Yeah, you don't think I've tried acupuncture?" Or like they'd be like, "Have you tried like wondering about the emotional reason for your pain?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. That's like kind of my thing, like going to healers and wondering about the emotional relationship to my pain." And I like found myself like actively getting annoyed. I was like, "Are you guys fucking dumb? Like, how do you not think this is what I'm doing?"
Yeah.
But retrospectively, I'm like, oh, maybe because it actually isn't that common of a practice, Like the common practice is to just be like, I'm injured and now I must rest until the injury is over.
It's random.
That has never been my orientation. Or it actually potentially was when I was young, but when I am injured, I'm like, oh, this is a time where I have to like look at every single aspect of my life that needs to be uncovered. Like the amount of meditation and prayer and ceremony and seeing people and conversations and action. And, you know, it's like maybe I even go too hard on my effort to heal, but I'm like, I'm not fucking around because I don't have time to sit around and be injured for 5 weeks. I'm like, I gotta get back. LOL. I gotta get back, even though I got my back. But I think that one of the things that is interesting around the cultural conversation around pain is as if it's something to wait out versus something to like actively explore.
Yeah, move through,
Yeah.
dance with. Even though, I mean, y'all, we're both dancers. We probably dance like, I don't know, how many days? 15 hours a week, collectively, we are movers. And these two mountain goats, these two Capricorns, we haven't been able to really dance in weeks. And it's hard. It's painful. It also like really makes me aware of the way that moving the body helps move the emotion. Like sometimes the only thing one can do is let the emotion, the energy in motion move you so it can move through you. And even if you have to rest, even if you have to be still, there's still ways that you can move through the pain. Like breath, incredible way to move energy. Meditation and visualization, all of those changing thought forms and beliefs and stories also hold energy that are impacting the brain and therefore the body. And so I mean, the power of a really potent visualization or meditation also when moving through pain. And I'm actually remembering being with Tony's healer a couple days ago, and she was doing a lot of work, ironically, not on my broken toe. She was doing it on my second chakra and like my womb space. And I had just gone through a couple
Your
different
wandering womb
my
space?
wandering womb space, and I had just gotten back from this event where there was just like a lot of old relational wounds and dynamics that came up for me, especially when it comes to being in relationship with women. And she was like, you have a lot of trauma in this place, and you also have a lot of projections, like other people's gaze into your own womb, which like that feels very connected to the hysteria of it all. Like lots of projection that you're crazy, that you're this, that you're that, that you're too much, that you're a whore, that you're just all the things, all of the gnarliest parts of the feminine that the patriarchy doesn't want us to be and explore. Because when we reclaim the bitch, the whore, the slut, the gnarly, the gross, the disgusting, then we redefine what woman is. And they don't want that because they want to tell us what we are so that we be that thing that fits into their mold. And so as she was working on me, I almost, and I was told on the way there I was going to almost like fall asleep. So when I started to kind of like fall asleep, I was told by my higher self, not someone on the phone. I was told my higher self on the way there was like, beep, boop, bop, you might fall asleep. So as I was falling asleep, I was like, okay, I was told this was going to happen, casual. This is just how we roll. And then I heard like angel, dragon angels singing, Sophia, 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 Sophia is all there is. And if you know about Sophia, I'm not talking about the ancient Greek goddess of wisdom, though bless up. I'm talking about Sophia, Sophia, having the same letters as source, like the same number of letters, and the way that Sophia has been used interchangeably with source and the divine mother across cultures and practices and mystery school teachings forever and ever and ever. Aho. And so it was so wild. Like, as she was literally like removing these projections, essentially, like the divine mommy was like singing into my womb, like I'm actually all there is. Like, your sovereign experience of me and you is all that actually gets to live inside of you. You don't have to have other people's projections of who they think you are in your body. Like, you can actually just let that go and let be full of yourself, which I also think is interesting because how many women have been demonized for being full of themselves. And also, something else I've been thinking about recently is this like two-faced thing, like women being called two-faced. And I'm like, bitch, we're supposed to have infinite multitudes of faces and phases. Like, as many times as the moon is shifting a degree of a sign, like we are also being pulled by those tides and changing. So to expect ourselves to stay the same and to also try to meet other people's expectations of being or performing or showing up in a certain way, I think that also cuts us off from our instinct and our intuition. And if you push back against that, you will be called hysterical. You will be called crazy. But then I think once you get over the real like pain and triggering of like those labels, then it becomes this like energy that you get to work with. And I personally kind of get off on it now. I'm like, oh, you think I'm crazy? I'm gonna show you crazy.
Yeah.
Three. I don't drink coffee. Today I had a cacao, an iced chai latte that Tony's kid made, and then a 16-ounce matcha latte at the co-op. So I am litty titty.
Um, yeah. I think that this idea of being full of the self was something that I want to kind of come back to as A, an insult, and B, as something to aspire to be. Because when you are full of yourself, then you don't feel like the gaping hole or the gaping wound that you're trying to fill.
Yeah.
And Edward Bernays, who, ironically, because we were already talking about Freud, is the nephew of Freud, he is basically the father of modern marketing. And what Bernays understood was that humans have an existential hole They have this feeling. And I think, it's a whole of the mystery of source, the mystery of godliness, the mystery of the spirit world. But we don't always like understand exactly how to navigate and negotiate this whole. And we think we're supposed to fill it versus embracing the fact that there is always going to be a massive mystery. Like, I don't think the whole is meant to be filled. I think it's meant to be observed and witnessed and noticed, embraced and acknowledged. But like, we do not know what happens when we die. We do not know where we before we were born. We can only theorize. We can only contemplate. Our consciousness is very limited because of language, and we are limited by the language that we are talking to ourselves in. Emotion is beyond language, right? Instinct is beyond language. Animals communicate beyond language. So there is a wisdom that we are, and a wildness, like we are taken away from the wisdom and the wildness through this commitment to language that we have, because language is by definition limiting. It is not going, the greatest wisdom of the universe is not spoken through language, it's spoken through feeling and emotion and instinct. However, Bernays understood that there was this common existential whole, and he theorized that, like, oh, well, we can make people think they can fill it with products, fill it with beauty, fill it with sex, fill it with cars, fill it with houses, fill it with um, money. And that is the root of the capitalism is so impactful and it's so effective, and it's such a beautiful, in a sense, tool for war and tool for social control because of this whole, because it is so psychologically entwined with the human condition. And capitalism wouldn't be effective without it. And I think, like, obviously I talk about this subject a lot. And then people always bring up the word greed. And I don't think it is greed. I don't think it is about greed. I don't think the hoarding is necessarily about greed. I think it's a fear of the whole.
Hmm.
Because I think greed is just ultimately a fear. It's a whole fear, fear of the whole.
I think about people too in positions of power and how like they're rarely alone. They're always
Mm.
surrounded by assistants or people
Oh,
checking in and all
wealthy
these
people in
things.
general, they're never alone. They have so much staff.
Yeah, yeah.
So much staff. That's so true.
To distract from like this questioning and this musing and honestly like philosophy outside of the institution. Um,
Real talk.
Philosophy as an expression of sovereignty. And I just read this piece at Earth Daughters Festival that I went to in Canada called The Mystery is the Mother. And it's all about like embracing that we like can't define source. We can't define the divine feminine. We can't define goddess. We can't define God. The moment that we try to start describing what that is, we've already lost the plot. Like
Hmm.
it's like it is a feeling. It is this like deep sensorial connection, like all of the senses activated. I think it's why when people have these like kundalini awakenings or these like rememberings of their connection to source, their senses are heightened, they're sensitive, they are crying, they are weeping, they are feeling. And I think also in a capitalist system that trades time for money, deeply feeling people who are considering the nature of the divine as like a focal point that they operate from is threatening to the time and the exchange for your time. You don't have time to feel. And then people who are deep feelers and empaths and highly sensitive and a little borderline autistic, hello, a little neurodivergent, like those people get pushed out and to the side. And I don't know, I was definitely put in like the dumb kids slow class or whatever, as they called it at my elementary school, because
They called it the, but you'll be the dumb kid slow
no,
class.
truly, like the cool kids called it the dumb kids slow class. And yeah, I was put in that fucking class because I had like an undiagnosed processing thing and I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD till in my 20s. And yeah, I always had like very neurodivergent friends. I was just like really resonated with the people who were called freaks. I was like, hello, same. And yeah, then you don't get fostered, your gifts don't get nurtured, and you develop these deep self-concepts and identities that you then carry with you throughout life that you're a problem, you take up too much time, you're too slow, get to the fucking point already, because time is money, baby. So you better fucking be the most efficient that you can and be the best and be the most. And we also see this in media and politics and these like little sound bites. It's like how much can you get in the shortest amount of time to make the biggest impact to essentially like influence the people in the way that you want instead of holding space for like the consortium, the cauldron of ideas.
Let's talk about the collective pain before we get out. Um, so I think there is like the way I'm seeing it is that let's just break it into thirds because it's kind of easy. A third of the people are really supportive of like the current paradigm. They're supportive of war, they're supportive of extraction, they're supportive of what's happening. And this isn't just in America, this is globally. A third of the people are supportive. A third of the people are like absolutely against it. Things have to change, things have to be different, want radical revolution. And then there's a third of the people who don't think this affects them, who like don't understand how it's impacting them. So I think what we have to understand is that the collective pain, whether you want it to be happening or so, I think only one third of the people are acknowledging that the collective pain is impacting them as well. Like
Mm,
it's not as if I'm like, oh, well, there is also, a genocide happening, a new war was started. There was a lot happening, and my body's also having a reaction to like genuine collective pain of which I'm intimately connected to, financially and spiritually and within the lineage of America. So I am feeling the collective pain. It is manifesting in my body beyond my own personal narrative, my own personal story, my own personal dramas. Like I am physically feeling the collective pain of which I am psychologically acknowledging on a daily basis. I don't think I've gone a day and not thought about genocide or war. I don't think I've gone a day and not thought about this, like not like I don't think I've gone a day and not thought about the world in this way since I was really young.
yeah.
So, yeah, there is going to be a collective pain body that anyone who's going to be thinking about this is experiencing that zapping pain of the collective and opening the heart to being connected to it. However, that doesn't mean that the people who want this or the people who think they aren't impacted aren't also feeling the collective pain. They are. They're just not giving it a voice. They're not giving it a name. They're not putting together that, like, oh, this might be impacting me in this way because it's not direct. And I think that's the thing that is again why instinct has been so demonized, our emotions have been so demonized. Because if everyone was like, oh no, I'm actually directly feeling depressed because of the collective pain of society. Therefore, the best and like most healing thing I can do for myself is actually be a part of the healing of society. That is very, again, threatening to the status quo. Is to have like a populace of people who understand the connection, the emotional connection of collective pain, even though Jung, Freud's protege, talked infinitely about collective consciousness. I mean, science and quantum physics and, many respected people understand the concept of a collective consciousness. Therefore, the idea of a collective pain body shouldn't be far behind. However, I think that's often being denied. So when and we go, if we're going to take it full circle, it's not about waiting this out. We're not supposed to wait out the collective pain body we're feeling. We're not supposed to wait out this like sadness of like genocide or this sadness of the extraction of what's going on in the Congo. We're not supposed to just wait and see what happens. We're actually supposed to be in action. We're supposed to be in movement. We're supposed to be in excavation personally and societally. We're supposed to be in the healing process constantly. We're not just supposed to sit and rest out the whole time, Even though, yes, rest is a part of it, but rest isn't just like sitting and detaching and watching TV. And I think that's like where I get it. Like, yeah, sometimes you want to like chill for a second, but like, I don't think rest should be that restful.
Well,
And it's not about like work, like in a capitalist sense, but it's about work in a spiritual sense.
yeah, I think it's like the disassociation of it all that
Yeah.
starts to become like even more harmful. And, there are so many ways to manage pain. And like, I always return to sovereignty because I'm like, the moment I start to judge someone else and their process and what they're choosing, I'm like, I've lost the plot of sovereignty. So, like, to each their own. And also, there are ways I think that people, myself included, manage pain that creates more pain
Hmm.
versus communicating and like having reverence for the pain as a communicator. Of course, you're going to get angry and frustrated and all these things and the hot tears, but then like on the other side of the tantrum, like what do you do with that?
Hmm.
And yeah, I think there is a lot of pain that we've been told is also normal, and especially for women, just a part of, we have a line in grape culture that's you're a woman, you're supposed to be in pain. And I think that's a deep, deep program that I personally feel like I've just started like kind of pulling myself out of. The addiction to suffering is so real, and I think it's really powerful to like choose joy and be in that as also a form of activism. Because the truth is, I believe everyone on planet Earth is an earth angel at different and varying degrees of how much they like remember that or not. Some people have really forgotten that they have a direct connection with source and that they are here to be a healing agent of light for obviously a myriad of reasons. But it is true, and it sounds goofy, but I just had so much of this in practice on this like horrific journey I just went on, which is like if you reflect people's light to them through your own light, like you will like crack them a little. Not all the time, but I a lot of times. Like if you just fiercely show up with that, like they will also remember that they have that in them because we really are all sacred mirrors reflecting back the same light.
And also, I do want to say the exhaustion of pain because
Yeah.
I have been in such immense pain for so many days, and how tired that makes me, how it affects my personality, how it affects my ability to connect with people, how it affects my patience. So it's not as if we should see like pain as some walk in the park. It is not. And there are times where you do need to disassociate and take a break.
Hmm.
It was interesting because I'm
Or like
not
unplug.
unplug from the pain for a moment, or give yourself a moment of reprieve in order to have the strength to come back.
Love Island.
Yeah, like Love Island has been a big part of my pain journey because it was a moment of reprieve. But I think what I'm trying to say is that I think what culturally there is this kind of like you should just be in reprieve. Like it's like there's almost like two things happening. Like one is like just unplug and disassociate, or work. And like neither of those are in symbiosis. Neither of those are dancing the choreography of balance, which is you do have to do both. And it was interesting because like I'm not a drug taker of Western meds. I like to do holistic stuff, but I was so desperate, that I took a Advil, and it was interesting. It didn't touch the pain.
It just makes me nauseous. Like it
I
won't even, my body won't even like use it.
It didn't make me nauseous. I mean, the oxy makes me nauseous. That's why I didn't take that because I could have gotten access to that, but it was interesting because I like knew I was like, well, even like what because I could have gotten oxy. My point is, I could have gotten some oxy. I got my hookups, but I was like, but if I took the pain away momentarily, that does the root pain is still there.
Yeah.
So maybe I have to just like deal with the root pain in order for this like hyper acute pain to go away. Because like I genuinely was in pain before this even happened.
Yeah, as a person who's been like diagnosed with chronic pain since I was like 17, I've really been, I think it's powerful to use that terminology with people who like don't believe that that's real. I think for those of us, as I move my tits, that know that that is a real experience, it's been really powerful for me to not identify like with that as a box that I put myself in because that's just really limited. And yes, it's in my genetics. And yes, I have these autoimmune things and whatever, whatever, but there's not enough space personally for me for healing and resolution in there. And I really have I take a big issue with the medical industrial complex gaslighting people into thinking that ailments that they're dealing with are a death sentence and it's just something that they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives. I think it's incredibly disempowering, and I think that the systems of oppression get off on our disempowerment. Um, and we, in addition to all of us being earth angels, like we're also all healers. And something I do want to share is when Tony and I were in a healing vortex with each other, she was like literally couldn't even sit up and she was like doing a healing on my foot. And then I was like literally like laying on the ground and like doing this healing on her back. And at one point, I took the back pain on, which I've been told by many of my teachers, I'm very, very spongy and I have to be careful of that. And never in my life has like an energy activation been like so quick, so clear, so undeniable. I told Tony, I was like, oh, my back is feeling a little something. She was like, oh, you probably slurped up the pain. So she turned me around and like, you were just cutting paper with scissors. She was just like, jump, bump, bump. And she cut the cord and like the pain immediately went away. And so like we can learn with each other like this. Like we didn't go to some class to learn how to cut cords and do energy Well, I mean, we have gone to classes, but like what I'm saying is there are these instinctual, intuitive ways that we know how to do magic with each other. That shit is also threatening.
Well, also, let me just back up too to that moment. So like I genuinely couldn't sit up. And so Sarah's foot was like on my heart as I'm doing this like Chinese herb to her foot, which is called moxa. You kind of are like smoking the poison out of someone's body.
Intense.
And, a lot of what both of us are going through, I mean, I know Sarah's activation is around, you know,
It's so many things.
work, but there is also a lot of relational
Yeah.
stuff happening. And for me, my back thing felt very relational. It felt almost exclusively relational. And so she's telling me, so again, look, as someone who's experienced immense pain, chronic pain, like I understand why people want to run from their pain. I understand it. I've been there. I've done it. It's not like I don't get it. And especially when you have like immense chronic pain that's lasting, like
Debilitating.
the amount of frustration I felt over this time, the amount of like self-pitying, the amount of like victimization I felt, it's all of it, like sadness. I felt all of it. I felt all the feelings as I laid on the floor, unable to sit up. But she's saying to me, "Oh, I'm like feeling your back pain." And I was just like, as a friend who is trying to model to a person that, like, I am not asking you to carry my pain. I am not asking you to take this on. I am not expecting that from you. That is also part of the healing. It was like, actually, no. Like, you're going to turn around and I'm going to cut this cord that you feel responsible for my pain because you are not. And I think that in and of itself is like how we have to, like, when you are in pain and when you can acknowledge that like your pain is relational, then it can give you the blueprint of how not to pass on that pain. And I think that is really crucial and important. Like the point of me cutting that cord was like, no, this is not about me passing on this pain or a friend of mine feeling responsible for my healing or my suffering. She has nothing to do with it. And I think that that is like where pain is the teacher. And again, like the teacher isn't kind. Like pain is not a kind teacher. it is not kind. And I think like the journey that we are on as people is to like learn through different modalities. And unfortunately, if you know, like pain is a powerful teacher, which is why it's so effective, which is why it keeps coming into our lives. You know, I would think our human evolution is not to AI. It's not to fucking the singularity or uploading our consciousness. It's having a life where you learn through joy. That would be cool.
Yeah, and
Wouldn't that be
remember
interesting?
that deeply feeling isn't actually a threat. It's like it's everything. It's all of it. Like the willingness to feel and then learn how to be in relationship, a responsive versus reactive relationship to those emotions, I feel like is the mystery school assignment that we all share. Um,
Let's end this
yeah,
podcast.
let me just say these cards. So, from my little self-love deck that was given to me by a really powerful healer that I just met last week. Um, the first one is dance. It says change is not possible without movement, and movement is everywhere in the universe. You are invited to join in the dance.
Sick.
Yeah. And metamorphosis also being something we can meditate on, that's like feels like some spiralic steps forward from transformation versus like this thing changing to that thing, metamorphosis, like as this continuation process of change. And you know, they say change is the only constant and like change is God. And I think it's also powerful to think of the ways that God, source, the divine is gonna like drag our ass to our inner underworld and like put our face in the shit piles to see like as an act of love. Like that's God too. To like smell your own shit pile of your own shit.
Oof. Brutal, but
You know,
okay.
like that's real. And then be nimble. When we ask for help, we must be open to receiving it.
Ooh.
We may be called to be flexible when help arrives in unexpected form.
Mm.
So I received this teaching around Mother Mary specifically, and I think it's because, you know, she's a mother divine archetype that many people pray to. And what I learned about this Mother Mary transmission, actually from Sophie Strand's parents, I think it was in The Way of the Rose, by Perdita Finn, and I forgot her dad's name, but really powerful family of oracles. Highly recommend Sophie Strand and Perdita Finn if you're into like this philosophy stuff around the divine. Um, she reminded me that when you're praying, whether it be to Mother Mary or any kind of goddess archetype or guide or your higher self or just God source energy in general, their like prayers don't get answered because they don't get asked. And so a lot of times I think we can be like in our human ego and suffering and be like, "Oh man, that thing like hasn't arrived yet." It's like, well, did you ask? Like at the most innocent, basic level, did you like close your eyes and be like, Divine Mommy, like, this is what I really need. This is what I'm really struggling with. Like, please support me in XYZ. And to then, like, be open to the answered prayer arriving in like many different forms, also in inconvenient ways. Like, have you ever prayed for something and then it arrives and then you're like, wait, this is actually more inconvenient than I was already inconvenienced and what the fuck?
Well, I
Um,
wonder if that's what happened because I was praying for like my body to feel better before this. And then boy did my body feel worse. But I'm like, well, is this the path of my body ultimately eventually feeling better?
the devolve to evolve, the drag down to then be like dragged up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like being like, I think like, I don't know, I'm as a dominant person, I'm really interested in divine mommy doming my ass because it takes a lot to like get me down and shut me the fuck up to like listen. So I don't know if you relate to that. Be flexible to help arriving in unexpected forms. Maybe this podcast was helpful for you. And if it was, you should rate, review, subscribe, share it with your friends. I think this is episode 16.
I don't know.
We're in the teens, all right?
Support the
So
Patreon.
support the Patreon. If you're on the Patreon, you are such a sweetie pie. Send us an email. Like, let us know what we can do for you. Let's co-create the space together. I'm gonna go drink more caffeine.
Yay. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye.
Bye.